This week's Parsha is Parshas Breishis. To start off, we'll start with a question that the Gemara asks, which seems to be unrelated to the Parsha. The Gemara asks, what is the most important among these two things? The Torah and the mitzvahs, performing the mitzvahs, or man himself? And the Gemara says that man is more important than the performance of the mitzvahs. Now, this Gemara is hard to understand. What does the Gemara mean? Man is more important, or the performance of his mitzvahs is more important. But it provides us with context for understanding the entire idea of what the Torah's purpose is, what is actually written inside the Torah. The Gemara's question, when it says, what is more important, the mitzvahs or the Torah, it means that is man's role on this planet, is it as simple as just do the mitzvahs, follow the commandments of God, and if you do everything he says to do and you don't do everything he says not to do, then you have achieved your purpose on this planet? Or is man more important? Is there an additional element, or even a more important element than just the performance of God's will, that man himself, something with man himself is more important? The person himself, who he is something which is even more important than the performance of the mitzvahs. And to that the Gemara says that man himself is more important. This means that the detached action, the detached performance of mitzvahs, of God's will, is important, of course, and a person will get his reward. But even more important than that is a person's diligence, his want to, through the performance of the mitzvahs, achieve more spirituality, more completeness, more purity, more connection to God. We can't view the performance of God's will as merely do's and don'ts. The performance of God's will is a means to an end. It's the way we get to where we want to get to. And the Gemara says, we see this in this week's Parsha. There's a verse in this week's Parsha which seems very strange. It says, Zeh Sefer Toldos Adam. It says, this is the book of the Chronicles of Man. What does that mean? It's the Chronicles of Man, of mankind. We didn't think it was the Chronicles of squirrels. So what does it mean this is the Chronicles of Man? So the Gemara says that this is the source, how we know that man, to answer to the question, that man is more important than the performance of the mitzvahs. Meaning that the Torah, which means hora, the word Torah, where does the word Torah come from? It comes from the word hora, which means to give judgment, to tell you the rules. It's when a rabbi, if you go to a rabbi and ask him, how should I do this mitzvah? And he says, this is how you should do it. That's a hora. He's telling you how to perform the mitzvah. He's telling you how to go about doing this specific mitzvah. So really the Torah is really just a book of mitzvahs, of the commandments of God, of how to fulfill the commandments of God. If that's the case, then at least 50% of the Torah seems to be in the wrong book, because it's stories upon stories of our forefathers, how they, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they went from Israel to here, to there, the story of Egypt, the slavery in Egypt, the Exodus, and so on. And there's so many little stories here and there. Most of the Torah is not even talking about the mitzvahs. So if the Torah is supposed to be a book of what you should do, when you go to the rabbi and he tells you what you should do, then why do we have all of this stuff in the Torah? The answer is that the Torah is telling you what you should do, and it's telling you how you should go about doing it. Not only should you perform the compartmentalized 613 commandments of God, you should use the performance of the mitzvahs to achieve perfection, to become a better person, to raise your status as a person. Quick question on this week's Parsha. In the last Aliyah, it says that God created male and female, and then the pasuk says, "Vayikra es shemam Adam." Zachar nekeva bira'am, vayikra es shemam Adam. He created them male and female, and he called their name man. Why does the Torah say that only once man and woman were created was their name man or Adam? Have a great Shabbos.